My name is Helen Marlowe, and before I tell you how my own son nearly destroyed me, I need you to understand one thing sometimes. Evil doesn't come wearing a stranger's face. Sometimes it shares your last name. It started on an ordinary Tuesday morning. The sun was pale through the kitchen curtains, the kettle whistling the same way it had for 43 years. Robert used to call it our house alarm. He'd been gone 6 months, and yet his coffee mug still sat by the sink like he'd just stepped outside to check the mail. That morning, the garage door was wide open. Robert never left it open. He was the sort of man who locked a lock twice just to make sure. I stepped outside, slippers scraping on the cold cement. The air smelled of metal and old wood, and my heart sank when I saw the empty spot where Robert's old pickup used to rest. The truck was gone. Inside the garage, his workbench was untouched, wrenches still hanging in perfect order, his faded flannel still draped across the stool. But the space where the truck had been looked like a pulled tooth in the mouth of our home, raw and wrong. I was staring at the oil stain when a black sedan rolled into the driveway. My son David climbed out, phone in one hand, guilt in his eyes. His wife Lena followed, heels clicking, sunglasses too big for her face. Mom, David started, avoiding my gaze, I came to tell you about the truck. My stomach turned cold. Where is it? He shifted. Sold it. We needed the money. You did what? Lena cut in before he could answer. It was just rusting, Helen, useless sitting there. We found a collector who paid good money. David handled it responsibly. That truck was your father's, I said, the words trembling out of me. He rebuilt that thing from scrap. He planned to drive it cross country when he retired. Lena sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Robert's gone, things change, you shouldn't hold on to the past. For a moment, the world tilted because behind her perfect lipstick and measured tone, I saw something hard, something hungry. How much? I managed. 20,000, David muttered. I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. That truck was worth 3 times that. You sold your father's pride for a vacation? Lena's mouth curved. It's an investment. We're expanding my design business. You'll understand soon enough. I wanted to scream. Instead, I used the calm voice I'd learned from decades as a nurse. You should have asked. David's shoulders slumped. Would you have said yes? No, I said quietly. Because not everything that belongs to the dead is yours to sell. Lena slid her arm through his. We should go, darling. She's upset. They turned, walking back to the car. Before getting in, she said softly over her shoulder, You'll thank us one day, Helen. You can't take memories to the grave. The sedan pulled away. I stood there staring at the empty driveway until my knees almost gave out. The truck was gone, but the ache in my chest said the loss was bigger than metal and bolts. That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt strange, foreign. Around midnight, I went to the garage again. The air was cool and heavy with dust. I sat on Robert's stool, hands trembling, whispering to the dark. Why would he do this, Robert? The silence didn't answer, but something else did. A faint click under the workbench, like a small switch being pressed by the weight of my foot. Curious, I knelt down and ran my hand along the underside. My fingers touched something taped there, a tiny metal flash drive, dusty but sealed in a plastic sleeve. It had Robert's handwriting on it. Helen, if you're reading this, don't trust them. My breath caught. Robert had left me a message. But what my husband recorded on that flash drive would reveal a secret so deep it would tear my family apart. I didn't sleep a minute that night. I just sat there, staring at the tiny flash drive lying in my palm like a piece of Robert's ghost. He'd always been a man of order, never one for drama. For him to leave me something hidden, especially with a warning, meant it wasn't paranoia, it was purpose. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I plugged the flash drive into my old laptop. It whirred to life, the screen flickering before a folder appeared, titled only, "If Something Happens to Me." My heart started pounding. I opened it. Inside were scanned documents, photos, and a single audio file. "Helen, play me first MP3." I clicked, and then I heard it, Robert's voice, crackled but steady, calm, the way he used to sound when he fixed something broken. "Helen, if you're listening, I guess I'm not there to explain this in person. Don't be frightened, love, just listen. Something's been happening with David and Lena. They've been pushing me about the will, about transferring the house, the accounts. I don't want you to worry yet, but I believe they're planning something. Something that involves you." My throat tightened. Robert paused, his breath heavy in the recording. "If anything happens to me suddenly, don't sign anything. Don't trust Lena. And look inside the truck's glove box, you'll find the rest." But the truck was gone, sold, taken out of my reach. The file ended with one last whisper: "Whatever happens, Helen, remember, I left you more than memories." I replayed that line a dozen times. More than memories, what did he mean? I printed every document in the folder and spread them across the kitchen table. Some were bank statements, others were photos of property deeds, but one paper stopped me cold. A draft of a second will, Robert's handwriting in the margins, his signature at the bottom. The will left the house and savings solely to me, with a note saying David would inherit later, once he'd proven financial stability. But that version was unsigned by a lawyer. And another document, a different will, had a typed date, notarized 2 weeks before Robert's death. That version gave everything to David and Lena. 2 wills, 2 dates, one must be fake. Just then the phone rang. It was David. "Mom, hey, you up?" "Yes, why?" "I talked to Lena's lawyer. We're helping you organize the estate. He just needs your signature on a few updates." "You know, legal stuff Dad forgot." I went still. "Updates? Yeah, it's routine. I'll bring the papers this weekend." "Don't bring anything, David," I said quietly. "Your father already left what he needed to." There was silence. Then his tone hardened. "Mom, please don't make this difficult. You can't handle these things alone. Lena and I are just trying to help." He hung up before I could reply. I stared at the phone, a slow chill running through me. Robert had been right. They were planning something. I gathered the papers, slipped them into a folder, and drove to Mr. Harris, the lawyer who'd handled our first will years ago. He was in his 70s now, kind-eyed and patient. When I laid both documents on his desk, he adjusted his glasses and frowned. "Helen, this second one isn't mine." "Are you sure?" He tapped the signature line. "That's not my stamp, and this signature," he squinted closer. "It's copied, see the pixelation here? Someone scanned and reprinted your husband's signature." My hands shook. "So it's fake, completely. Someone forged this." I sat frozen while Mr. Harris leaned back. "I'll prepare an affidavit confirming this. You'll need it soon." I left the office clutching the file like it was oxygen. When I reached home, there was a car already waiting in my driveway, Lena's. She was sitting on my porch step, phone in hand, pretending to smile. "Helen," she said sweetly as I stepped out, "we were worried about you. David said you've been acting off." "Off," I repeated. She tilted her head. "You've been confused lately, forgetting things, losing papers. It's okay, aging is hard. That's why we think it's best if you let us handle the finances." My blood ran cold. There it was, the lie Robert had warned me about. Lena, I said slowly, if you touch anything in this house without my permission, I'll call the police. Her smile didn't fade, it sharpened. Then I guess you'll have to prove you're of sound mind, won't you? For the first time in my life, I saw what my son saw in her: charm, beauty, and danger. She walked back to her car, heels tapping against the concrete, and as she opened the door, she looked over her shoulder and said, "You'll regret pushing me, Helen, you really will." The car drove off. I stood there shaking, the sound of her threat echoing inside my bones. I went back inside, locked every door, and sat with Robert's flash drive again. I needed to know what else he'd hidden. That's when I noticed something strange on the drive, a folder I hadn't opened before. Private, do not open. I clicked it anyway. Inside were photos of Lena, different locations, different times. One with a man I'd never seen before, holding her hand in a hotel lobby. The date stamp was a year before she met David, and that man was wearing Robert's watch. The next thing I learned about that photo shattered everything I thought I knew about my husband and my son. Must have stared at that photo for 10 straight minutes before my mind could even form words. There was Lena in a blue dress, her arm linked through a man unmistakably wearing Robert's old silver watch. The same one engraved to my love, HM, the same one that had gone missing the week he died. But the man in the picture, he wasn't Robert. He was taller, younger, and standing too close to her, like they weren't strangers. My breath came short. Robert's watch, Lena's smile, a date stamped 8 months before my husband's death. I clicked the next image, another angle, this time outside a motel near the highway. The man's car was a black sedan with a dented bumper. I zoomed in on the license plate and scribbled it down. Who was he? Why did Robert have these photos? I called Mr. Harris again. "I need a favor," I said. "Can you find someone who can trace a license plate privately?" He hesitated. "Helen, what are you getting into?" "Answers," I told him. "Just answers." That evening, I got a call back. "The plate belongs to a Daniel Rhodes, 42, from the next county. No criminal record, owns a small used car business." A used car business. My heart stopped. Robert's truck, Lena's trip to sell it. Pieces started snapping together in my mind like puzzle locks. Lena and this Daniel had been in contact before Robert's death. The forged will, the sale of the truck, the one hiding the glove box clue Robert mentioned. She hadn't sold that truck to a stranger. She'd sold it to her partner. The next morning, I drove to Daniel's car lot, a place called Rhodes Motors on the edge of town. Dusty signs, 3 old trucks lined up outside. I parked, took a deep breath, and walked in. A man behind the counter looked up. "Can I help you?" I froze. It was him, the man from the photo, older now, scruffy beard, nervous eyes. "Are you Daniel Rhodes?" I asked. "Yeah." "Who's asking?" "I'm Helen Marlowe," I said, "the widow of Robert Marlowe. You bought his pickup truck from my son's wife." He blinked, his jaw tightened. "That was months ago, everything legal." I smiled, though my heart was thudding. "I'm sure it was, but here's the thing, that truck had something of mine inside. A letter, I'd like it back." He stiffened. "Don't know what you're talking about." "Funny," I said quietly, "because my husband seemed to know a lot about you. In fact, he had photos of you and my daughter-in-law together." The color drained from his face. "What?" I pulled a single photo from my bag, the one with the watch clear in view, and slid it across the counter. He stared at it, then whispered, "She promised she destroyed those." That was all I needed. "Where's the truck, Daniel?" He rubbed his temple, then sighed like a man too tired to keep lying. "Sold it last month. But I can tell you who has it." He scribbled an address on a receipt pad and pushed it toward me. I didn't know she was married to your son, he said, voice low. She told me Robert was her husband. She said you were sick, that she needed money before you went into a home. I gripped the counter to keep from falling. She told you my husband was her husband? He nodded slowly. And when I found out she lied, she vanished, took money, left the country. But then I saw her back here last week with another man. Must have been your son. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The woman sleeping beside my son had been pretending to be Robert's wife before he died. I left without another word, the address burning in my hand. It led to a farmhouse outside town. The name on the mailbox read Andrews. The man, Mr. Andrews, answered my knock. When I mentioned the truck, his eyes lit up. Beautiful piece of work, he said proudly. Bought it off a guy named Daniel, restored it myself. Why? I explained that my husband had hidden something inside, probably in the glove box. He frowned but led me to the barn where the truck sat gleaming under soft light. When I opened the glove box, my hand trembled. Inside was a single envelope, yellowed and sealed, with my name on it, Helen. I broke the seal. Inside was a folded letter and a small brass key. Robert's handwriting filled the page. If this finds you, then you know by now that Lena isn't who she pretends to be. I found out too late. The money missing from our joint account, she took it. Said it was for David's business, but I traced it to Daniel Rhodes. She's been lying to both of them. Helen, I tried to confront her, but she threatened to expose something about David that would ruin him. Please protect him. Don't tell him until you have proof. The truth is darker than you think. The brass key glinted in the light, a safe deposit key, engraved with the number 312. I turned to Mr. Andrews. May I borrow this envelope for a few days? He nodded. Of course, ma'am, take your time. As I drove home, the key in my lap, I felt the weight of every word Robert had written. He'd been investigating Lena before his death. He knew about her lies, maybe even how deep they went. And now that key might lead me to the one thing she hadn't stolen yet, the truth. But when I opened that safe deposit box, I found something that made me realize Robert hadn't just been warning me about Lena, he'd been warning me about our own son. The brass key felt heavier than it should have, like it carried the weight of the dead. I barely slept that night. I just sat at my kitchen table, turning it over in my fingers, wondering what secret Robert had locked away before his heart stopped. The next morning, I drove to Central Bank, the one we'd always used. I told the clerk I needed access to box 312. The woman disappeared for a moment, then returned with a manager, a gray-haired man with a serious face. Mrs. Marlowe, he said softly, I'll need your ID and your husband's death certificate to verify. I handed them over, my fingers shaking. He led me to the back vault, quiet, cold, walls lined with hundreds of tiny steel doors. When I slid the key into number 312, something inside me twisted. The latch clicked open, and I pulled out a long metal box. Inside, wrapped in paper, was a thick folder labeled Insurance/Legal Matters and a small velvet pouch. I opened the pouch first, expecting jewelry. Instead, it was a USB drive, identical to the one I'd already found. I plugged it into the vault's computer and opened the only file on it. For Helen Final, Robert's voice came again, steadier this time. He sounded tired. Helen, if you're hearing this, then what I feared has happened. I found something I never wanted you to know about David. He didn't just fall under Lena's spell, he helped her. The forged will, the stolen funds, he signed papers behind my back. I confronted him 2 nights before I died. We argued. I told him I'd change the will back. He said he'd handle it. If my death seems sudden, look closer. And whatever happens, don't hate him. He's her victim, too. I covered my mouth, shaking. 2 nights before Robert's death, David was with him. He'd told the police Robert went to bed early and never woke up. Heart failure, they said, but what if it wasn't? I opened the folder next. Inside were copies of police reports, bank transfers, and emails, Lena convincing Robert to invest in her company using David's account. One transfer stood out, $80,000 withdrawn 2 days before Robert's death. The signature line was David's. A tear slid down my cheek. My son hadn't just been manipulated, he'd helped steal from his own father. By noon, I was sitting in my car, folder on the passenger seat, trying to breathe. My phone buzzed, David calling. I answered. Mom, we need to talk. It's urgent. His voice was shaky. Where are you? I asked. I'm outside your house. Lena's gone. She took everything. The accounts are empty. I froze. Empty? All of it, he said. Her phone's off. The business line, too. She left a note. I drove home fast. David was sitting on the porch steps, hair a mess, hands covering his face. When he saw me, he broke down. She left, Mom, took the car, the cards, everything. I don't know what I did wrong. I knelt beside him. You did a lot wrong, David, but she's not gone far. He looked up, startled. What do you mean? I held up the folder. Your father found out everything about the will, the transfers, your part in it. He knew. David's face went pale. He knew. He left me this, I said, setting the folder in his lap, and this recording. He opened it slowly, hands trembling. The color drained further with every page. When he looked at me again, his eyes were glassy. I didn't mean for any of it to go that far, Mom. Lena said Dad wanted to invest in her business. She said it would secure our future. I just signed the papers. I didn't know she forged his will. My voice cracked. And when he confronted you, David flinched like I'd slapped him. He got angry. He said he'd go to the police. I begged him not to. I told him Lena would ruin me. He said, You already ruined yourself, son. He rubbed his temples, tears spilling down. He was clutching his chest. I thought he was faking it. I thought. He broke down. You thought what? I whispered. He looked up, eyes full of horror. I didn't call 911, Mom. I froze. I just stood there until he stopped breathing. The silence that followed was unbearable. I couldn't move, couldn't even breathe. Robert hadn't died from an accident or a plan. He'd died because our son hesitated. David sobbed, rocking himself. She told me to cover it up, said we'd both go to jail if anyone found out. She made me sign that will to make it look like Dad approved it. I wanted to hate him, but when I looked at his shaking hands, I saw the little boy who used to fix birdhouses with his father. He wasn't evil, he was weak. I took his hand. We're going to the police. No, he said quickly, panic rising. Please, Mom, if they know I didn't help him. David, I said quietly, we can't bury another truth. Your father deserves peace. He stood, pacing. She'll destroy me. You don't understand what she's capable of. At that exact moment, a car horn blared outside. We turned. Lena's sedan was pulling up the driveway. David's face went white. She's back. Lena stepped out, sunglasses on, calm as ever. David, she said sweetly, you forgot to sign one more document before I left. Then she looked at me, her smile thin and cruel. And you, Helen, always where you don't belong. I stepped in front of my son. It's over, Lena. She raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? David whispered. Mom, she has something on me. Please, Lena pulled a phone from her purse and tapped the screen. A video began to play, grainy footage of David standing beside Robert's body, not calling for help. I kept a copy, she said softly. Insurance. Now you'll both sign over the house or this goes to the police. David's knees nearly gave out. Lena smirked. So what's it going to be? I met her eyes. You forgot one thing. She tilted her head. And what's that? The truth always leaves a trail, I said, and your trail just ran out. Because in that moment, someone else appeared behind Lena, someone she never expected to see again, and neither did I. Lena froze when the footsteps crunched behind her. She turned, and her smile cracked for the first time. Standing there at the edge of the driveway was Daniel Rhodes, the man from the photographs, her former partner. He looked worn, older, and furious. "Hello, Lena," he said quietly. "Or should I say Lara, since that's the name you used when you stole 70 grand from me?" Her eyes went wide. "Daniel, save it," he snapped. "You left me to take the fall. I lost everything because of you. Then I see your face again with a new husband, a new name, and I realized you'd moved up to bigger victims." He held up his phone. "The police already have your video. I sent it an hour ago." Lena's fake calm shattered. "You don't know what you've done." "Oh, I know exactly," Daniel said, "and I'm not running this time." She lunged toward him, but David stepped between them. "Lena, stop. Get out of my way," she hissed. "You think your mother's going to save you now? You're just as guilty as I am." The rage in her voice was raw animal. David flinched, tears streaking down his face. "Maybe I am," he whispered, "but I'm done lying for you." For a heartbeat, none of us moved. Then, with a desperate cry, Lena swung her purse. A glint of metal flashed inside. A gun. Everything happened too fast. Daniel grabbed her arm, struggling for control. The gun went off once, twice, echoing through the quiet street. When the smoke cleared, Lena was on the ground, her own blood blooming beneath her hand. Daniel was shaking, the gun kicked away, horror on his face. "I didn't mean to, I just wanted to stop her." I knelt beside Lena. Her eyes fluttered, blood on her lips. She looked at me, not with fear, but hatred. "You think you've won?" she whispered. "He'll never forgive you." And then she went still. Sirens wailed in the distance. Daniel slumped to the curb, sobbing. David just stood there, staring at his wife's body like it wasn't real. 2 weeks later, the investigation ended. Daniel was cleared, ruled self-defense. Lena's crimes surfaced like oil in water. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. Her list of victims stretched across 3 states. But the part that crushed me most was the report confirming Robert's death. The autopsy, re-examined, concluded what I already knew: heart failure triggered by acute stress, brought on during an argument with his son. David wasn't charged. The police called it contributing circumstances, not homicide. But I knew the truth, the kind that doesn't go away just because it's legal. He barely spoke for weeks. Every day he sat in Robert's garage, staring at the empty space where the truck used to be, the place where everything started. One evening, I brought him a cup of coffee. He looked up, eyes hollow. "I keep hearing his voice," he said. "When I close my eyes, I hear him saying, 'Fix it right, son, fix it right.' But I can't fix this, Mom." I sat beside him. "Then live with it. That's the price of truth." He nodded slowly, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I don't deserve forgiveness." I touched his hand. "Your father left it anyway." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I handed him Robert's last recording, the one from the bank. He listened in silence, his shoulders shaking when Robert's voice said, "Don't hate him, Helen. He's her victim too." When the audio ended, David just sat there, crying quietly, and for the first time I cried with him. Months passed. The house grew quiet again, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that carries ghosts. I sold nothing. I changed nothing. Every photo, every tool, every memory stayed where Robert left it. Sometimes at dusk, I stand in the doorway of the garage and whisper, "You were right, my love. The truth did save us, but it took everything else with it." And now, if you've stayed with me till this point, you already know what I'm about to say. We tell these stories not just to remember, but to warn, because sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. So tell me, what would you have done in my place? Would you have forgiven your child if his silence cost a life? Let me know in the comments below. And before you go, speech balloon, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Grandma Diary.